The gentleman from Wisconsin, Mr. Duffy, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I appreciate the witnesses coming in today, this afternoon, and testifying. Ms. Gordon, just to clarify your testimony, is it your position that folks who have come into risk with their mortgages and are potentially near foreclosure, that we should provide them alternatives to modify their loans? Is that right?
When it would return a greater amount of cash flow to the investor to modify the loan rather than not modify it, and if you don't modify it, generally goes on to foreclosure, then it does make economic sense to modify that loan. That's why all of the contracts that you'll look at will contemplate the possibility of modifying loans.
But should that be the choice of the investor, or should that be the choice of government to step in and dictate that cash flow?
Right now it is, the spreadsheet that the servicers run has to do with the amount that would be returned to the investor. The government actually doesn't play a role in making that decision. That decision's made by the private servicer.
So you're not advocating that government should step in and play a bigger role in writing down principal or being part of renegotiating interest rates, are you?
What government needs to, unfortunately, the private system has failed us here in terms of their capacity and their competence. And in
so
cases like that,
government does have a role in doing this?
I think the government has a role in helping the servicers figure out a way to make the choices that help not just investors, but help the whole housing market recover. Honestly, I don't think the government has deployed the right tools to do that or deployed them forcefully enough.
So even when a homeowner and a bank have entered into an agreement, two private parties, you believe that it's a role of government to step in and potentially negotiate a resolution by a potential principal write-down or a decrease in interest rate?
So I should add that in the HAMP program, for example, as one of the principal government programs, the servicers have entered into a contract there with Treasury under which they receive financial incentives to do the job that, frankly, they're obligated under all of their contracts with private parties to do anyway.
And Ms. Schwartz, one part of your testimony, you indicated that the foreclosure times from 2008, 300 days, have gone up to now 500 days in 2010. I mean, what impact does this have on prolonging this housing crisis?
I think it gets at the bigger issue that we kind of have overlapping inefficient processes through the foreclosure prevention, and some of it's good because you're protecting consumers who might have fallen through the cracks, but a lot of it has drawn out housing that otherwise should go to foreclosure, like abandoned houses, and deterioration of neighborhoods happens when you have long timelines of empty houses for 2 years, because that's an average of 500 days. So investors need certainty on what they're investing in the mortgage business and the mortgage markets to get back to kind of normal timelines.
Is it fair to say that we want to work through this crisis as quickly as possible, hit our bottom, and hopefully rebound? Is that a fair assessment of what you think is an appropriate?
I think that's right. I think we have to get through the delinquent and past due loans and get through them and hopefully save as many people that are eligible for a loan modification.
Right.
And they get them, but then foreclose or do a short sale. In a deed in lieu, there are other methods. It's not just a foreclosure.
And maybe to the whole panel, I mean, are the policies that we have in place right now facilitating a movement of these bad mortgages through the process so we can, bottom and hopefully come back up? I mean, are the policies helping or hurting the movement?
Well, something that I think is important to recognize is that there's no bottom that you and I can look at and say, oh, look, the bottom's right over there, we need to get it into it. The foreclosures beget more foreclosures. As you have more foreclosures in a neighborhood, there are price declines. As people are underwater on their mortgages, they are more vulnerable to any kind of income interruption, and in that case, they end up going to foreclosures. We can talk about letting the markets clear, but the markets can clear at various levels, and the importance of keeping people in loans when they can afford them and when they return greater value to the investor.
And on that point, my time is almost up. When we have this time frame go from 300 days to 500 days when it prolongs the foreclosure process, doesn't that put more pressure on the housing market because there's more foreclosures on the market and we haven't worked through them, Mr. Holtz-Eakin?
I would say yes. I mean, everyone has the ideal notion that if there's an economically rational workout that can be done between private parties, it should happen. When you start intervening in dramatic ways, two things happen. Number one, the rules aren't clear, and it leads to uncertainty, slows things down. Number two, there's an actual incentive to wait for a better deal. Maybe the taxpayers just stick a little more money on the table. What happens next? And this has slowed down, not speeded the overall housing adjustment.
Thank you.